Welcome to American Greed Inside the Episode. What's up, everybody? I'm DJ Sixsmith. We're talking about the season premiere Tuesday, September 27th. It's called The Polygamist and the Biofuel Baron. Vince Beiser is here with me. We're going to talk all about it. You're a journalist and an author. Folks are going to see you in this first episode, and it's a wild story involving the Order, which is a religious sect, and Jacob Kingston and his family, and then a man called the Lion. And we're going to talk all about Lev in just a little while. But when did you first get wind of this story?
There was an article in the Los Angeles Times right when the trial started of all these guys, and it was just a pretty short news item saying crazy Armenian gangster involved with crazy polygamist fundamentalist Mormon sect, $500 million scam. And I was just like, wow.
So when it comes to the Order, I think it's really important for people to understand what that religious sect looks like, and also for Jacob Kingston, right, what his family situation is. People are going to learn about that, but how would you describe the Order to people who have never heard about it and who are going to learn about it for the first time in this episode?
The Order is basically a kind of an offshoot sect of Mormonism. So the mainstream Mormon church disavowed, gave up polygamy decades and decades ago. When that happened, there was a number of like hardcore true believer Mormons who said, no, that is wrong. That's what God wants us to do, and we're going to keep on doing it. And so a few of the ultra fundamentalist sects kind of splintered off from the mainstream, and the Order is one of them. So there's about 3,000 to 5,000 members, almost all of them in Utah. Really important thing is taking of plural wives. They are the community of the righteous, and the rest of the world is dangerous and sinful and should be kept at arm's length.
So one of the things that's talked about in this episode is when it comes to the Order, they believe in the consecration of money. So how does that ultimately lead Jacob Kingston into the biofuel business, which isn't exactly the most trustworthy thing? Why does he get into it to start?
One of the things about the Order is they were started originally as a kind of standalone community. They bought some land north of Salt Lake City, and they were just going to be autonomous out there. Nowadays, they still own that particular piece of land, but they've also branched out into all kinds of other things. They own grocery stores, farms, cattle ranches, a whole bunch of different businesses. One of the precepts is they're supposed to consecrate their money, which means basically they pool it. Whatever you are, as an individual make, you're supposed to give all or at least a big chunk of it back to the Order itself, which really means handing it to the leadership to do with as they see fit. Jacob Kingston, he's one of many, many nephews of the current leader of the Order, Paul Kingston, heard about just at that time, the federal government was putting a lot of money into biofuels.
So let's talk a little bit about Lev Dermen here. How does he come into the picture, and what fascinates you the most about the relationship between the Lion and the polygamist here, Jacob Kingston?
Long about the time that Jacob Kingston was finishing up university and looking to get into this world, the federal government started handing out big subsidies.
It works out to roughly on the order of $2 a gallon, straight from the federal government, just for having made this stuff. And then you get to sell the stuff and make whatever you make.
So Jacob figures, okay, this is a good business to get into, and he sets up a biodiesel facility on some of the Order's land up in northern Utah, where the idea is they're going to collect waste oil. They're going to get like grease from restaurants in Las Vegas and LA and wherever else, turn it into biofuel, and then sell the biofuel, and also collect these federal tax credits. Problem was they weren't making any money doing that because they were super remote and it's hard to do. And
all the places where they can source the actual vegetable oil are a long ways away. So they wind up having to truck vegetable oil in from the Midwest. It's expensive, right? They have to truck all this stuff way out to their plant in the middle of nowhere, where they do indeed convert it into biodiesel, but then they have to, again, truck it from there to wherever the buyers are.
Jacob starts to realize, easier than actually doing this is pretending to do it. So he sort of dips his toe into this like murky world of illegal biofuel trading. And this is where he meets the Lion, Lev Dermen. He's originally from Armenia, came over with his family from Armenia to Los Angeles when he was just a kid. And he got into small-time fuel dealing in Los Angeles. Starts up a couple of truck stops. He starts buying and selling gasoline in large amounts. And he's a very shady character. And basically the two of them meet through this, working in this shady world. And Lev Dermen, who is making a lot of money, looks at Jacob Kingston's outfit and he says, you've got an actual legit biodiesel facility, even though it's not making anything, it is there. You and me together can make a lot of money. And basically, when the two of them get together, the polygamist and the lion, that's when the whole scam just mushrooms, takes off, explodes.
It's an unbelievable story, and there's many twists and turns which people will see, but two things I want to hit. Number one, the lion and the business names that he has, which you talk about in the episode, and two, the gifts that Jacob and the lion give each other. I mean, what's the craziest part about both of those things when you think about it?
The lion, Lev Dermen, he's a really flashy guy, kind of a real gangster style guy.
He really carries himself with a lot of swagger. He likes to dress really flashy. He drives Lamborghinis, he's got a Bugatti, he's got an armored SUV. He's got an office on Rodeo Drive, and he travels around by private jet. All of his businesses are called Lion Trucking, Lion Fuel, or he's got a couple of gas stations that are called Noil Gas. It's Lion backwards, right? He lives in a very different world from poor Jacob Kingston, who grew up in a house with 7 kids in 2 bedrooms.
That was full of cockroaches and spiders, and all of a sudden, he's hanging out with this guy who's flying around by private jet, who's like buying cases of lobster and just living the high life. Jacob's mind is blown. His world has just been opened wide up.
So not only is Dermen going to buy the fuel, they're going to fake up all this paperwork so they can claim millions of dollars in tax credits. They make a couple of $1 million. Now they're in business together.
So over the course of the few years that the two of these guys are dealing together, they start dealing in tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of fraud. And Jacob really gets into it to the point where the two of them, Lev and Jacob, are exchanging things like $20,000 watches, buying each other houses. At one point, Lev gives him a gold-colored, I forget if it's a Lamborghini or a Maserati.
Either way, it's just the amount of wealth that's going back between these guys is absurd.
It's pretty amazing.
So as greed fans know, some people do anything for money. Vince, with that being said, how does greed ultimately lead to the downfall here of Kingston and Dermen?
Well, the way it often does, right? They get too greedy. They had a nice scam going. First year or two they're doing it, they're raking in millions of fraudulent dollars, which is, not a bad chunk of change. But Lev keeps wanting to up the ante, and the scams get more and more elaborate.
And we also get the polygamy angle with a woman named Mary Jacobs, who was in the order. We'll hear from her. Vince, when you think about this story and the ultimate downfall of these two men and this fraudulent business, what are some of the biggest things we could take away from their story?
The moral of the story is don't get too greedy, be satisfied. But that's probably not the best message to send out there to America.
If you get too greedy, you're going to get got.
Sometimes the simplest lessons are the most profound, right? Don't get greedy.
Vince, appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Been a pleasure.
There you have it. That is American Greed inside the episode. Tuesday, September 27th is The Polygamist and the Biofuel Baron. We'll see you next time here on the show.
Stacy Keach here. Feeling greedy for more videos like this one? Then be sure to like and subscribe right here on CNBC Prime.